One of my earliest memories from Palm Sunday, when I was growing up as a kid, was that the church I attended had a tradition of gathering us all in the fellowship hall, usually on the Saturday afternoon before, where we would be greeted by a gigantic pile of long, spiny palm fronds sitting on one of the tables. And they would have all the kids and youth sit at the other tables and pass around several of these palm fronds to each person. And someone, usually the minister or the adult volunteer who would draw the short straw that year, would show us how to fold the palm fronds into the small little crosses that they would give to people as they entered the church for the processional at one of the Palm Sunday services. Inevitably, as you were folding the palms, some of them would break in half, or they would get tangled up into something that resembled more of a giant knot than a cross shape. But these would normally get thrown in the trash, and we would just pick up another frond from our pile and start again. This would go on for several hours, usually with us chatting and joking back and forth to each other, and at least two people, one which they or may not have been your minister, stopping to have a sword fight with each other with two of the palms until the pile of palm fronds had turned into a nice, neat, uniform stack of crosses. And while you were encouraged to hold on to your palm cross and display it somewhere where you could see it in your daily life, I was clipped mine to the visor of my car, most people would place theirs in a basket at the back of the sanctuary after the service. Those discarded palm crosses, the ones that we'd spent the entire afternoon folding, would end up getting thrown into a fire, and the resulting ashes would be saved for Ash Wednesday the next year. I took for granted that there would always be a giant pile of palm fronds that would show up every year at the fellowship hall. It was not until later on that I began to stop and think, where exactly did that pile of palm fronds come from? I grew up in both Oklahoma and Texas, and I can tell you that in neither state do palm trees grow neatly. It never crossed my mind that these palm fronds had come from somewhere else, likely from somewhere overseas, and what people had to go through in order to collect so many palm fronds to make up that giant pile in the fellowship hall. Aside from the palm fronds that we use to make the crosses, palm trees are used to make hydrogenated palm oil, a product that is now used in everything from soap to shampoo to lotion to various other food items. You can go to most vending machines, purchase any type of Little Debbie or Hostess snack cake or cookies, and if you turn the package over, you will find that palm oil is one of the first ingredients listed. Palm oil has become so lucrative that many countries around the world, especially ones that are trying to develop their economies, are planting large groves of palm trees for the purposes of harvesting palm oil and exporting it worldwide. In 2016, there was a docuseries titled Years of Living Dangerously, which took famous Hollywood stars alongside environmental activists to various places around the world to illustrate the effects of climate change. In one particular episode, actor Harrison Ford was taken on a flyover of a large corporate palm grove in Indonesia that was used to produce and export palm oil, and was shown how copious amounts of old growth forests have been slashed and burned to make way for these palm groves, causing untold amounts of deforestation and displacing countless numbers of threatened and critically endangered species in the process. I sometimes wonder, since Palm Sunday is traditionally celebrated by Christians and others as the triumphant arrival of Jesus into Jerusalem in the beginning of the Easter season, that if Jesus were to arrive in the present day, what kind of world would they come into? What would they have to say about the world and the environmental state that it is currently in? The 19th chapter of the Gospel of Luke in the Christian Scriptures, which is traditionally one of the texts that is read at Palm Sunday services, talks about how Jesus openly wept while stopping to look over the city. While most biblical scholars scholars say this is because Jesus was foretelling the crucifixion that was to come and the destruction of the Second Temple. I wonder if the tears of Jesus today would be because of the state of the world, because of climate change and environmental degradation. The idea of explicitly stating a commitment to maintaining stewardship of the environment as a people of faith was not one that was included when the Unitarian and Universalist churches merged in 1961. Although the newly formed denomination passed many social justice statements regarding the environment and environmental justice throughout the 1960s, it was not until the principles were revised in 1985 that the seventh principle as we know it today, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all part, was included in the list of principles that we affirm. Even after its adoption, its focus was not one that featured very highly in the lives of many congregations. It was for this reason, in 1989, a task force was formed to discuss ways about how to make the seventh principle more of a central focus to members, congregations, and the Greater as a whole. This resulted in the development of the Seventh Principle Project and the Green Sanctuary Handbook in 1991, which provided ideas for religious celebrations, educational opportunities, and ideas for community action to demonstrate ways to live out our commitment to respecting the interdependent web of existence, of which we're all a part. In 2002, a program was added to allow congregations to become certified as green sanctuaries, displaying their commitment to living more in harmony with respecting environments. Since 2005, when the Seventh Principle Project became the UU Ministry for the Earth that it is today, it has supported a long series of social justice statements and actions of immediate witness at General Assembly, and supports several programs that address solutions to a wide variety of environmental issues like climate change, ecosystem conservation and restoration, food justice, and sustainability. In addition, the UU Ministry for the Earth, or UUMFU for short, also does a large amount of what it calls frontline solidarity by centering the needs and voices and leadership of those who are most disproportionately affected by environmental degradation and climate change, including indigenous and low-income peoples, people of color, island nations, and youth. In addition to those social justice groups within the UUA, many congregations across the country also part of and partner with interfaith organizations working collaboratively for environmental justice and climate change. One of the most well-known of these kinds of groups is Interfaith Power Light, which was started in 1998 by a coalition of Episcopal churches in California committed to purchasing renewable energy, and which I'm sure our special guest here today can tell you much more about later. Not yet. I could easily spend an entire sermon just listing off various environmental justice groups and the work that they do. But I keep going back to the image of Jesus weeping while standing above the city of Jerusalem. In the grand scheme of things for us as UUs, Easter is a cultural holiday that is observed every year. And the story of Jesus may not have the meaning for some of us any more than it once did, or ever did for that matter. But the themes that come with the observance of Easter, new life, flourishing, and hope, are ones that I still think about this time of year. The question that I always ask is, how is life that comes after Easter any different? What about life has changed with the arrival of Easter? Has anything changed? It is that same concern that I hear from Jane Waldland in the reading for today. What effects do my words and deeds have on the environment and the human world? We will not always know the ramification of our deeds, but they are there. If not for us in the present, then for generations that are to come later. Will this beautiful natural world that I enjoy, and which was such a comfort to me during times of isolation and pandemic, be still there in about 10 or 20 years? Will the same birds and animals be there to bring joy as I watch them go about living their lives? And if all of it is still there, will it look the same? The reality is I cannot promise that. None of us can promise that yet. But what I can tell you is that just like the pile of poems that I never gave a second thought to on Palm Sunday, I'm beginning to think differently about the environment and the part that I play in it. I cannot single-handedly turn back the clock on climate change as much as I would like to, but I'm starting to think about the ways that I can try to leave the environment in the best conceivable way for those that are to come on Palm Sunday this year. And as we move closer to Easter, perhaps we can take a moment as a spiritual practice to try to do the same. My guest today knows all about environmentalism as a spiritual practice. Now you can stand up. They are the director for Northern California at California Interfaith Power Light and a fellow UU from the First U Society of San Francisco. Please welcome to our pulpit, Gregory Stevens.
So I grew up a Southern Baptist. And in the Baptist tradition, we had this great speaker, Tony Campolo, remember, he was a social justice preacher. But he used to give this sermon, and it was about how Friday's here, but Sunday's coming. So if you remember the Christian narrative, Friday's the day, Good Friday from the Lord's Service. It's the day that all the trauma and all the pain of the world is brought to Jesus, to put on Jesus. And then for 2 days, he's down there buried, and then the third he rises again, right? And so there's this death and sorrow, there's this lingering time, and then there's this hope-filled resurrection. So Tony goes, it's Friday! And the oceans are acidified, and the trees are falling down, and the songbirds, their habitats are going extinct, but Sunday's coming. It's Friday! The rivers are overflowing and flooding the farmland, so the farm workers are not even able to create the food that we need, and their livelihood is going to hell in a handbasket, but Sunday's coming. So I'm Gregory, I work for California Interfaith Power Light. And I'm trying to bring a little hope to our movement and a little bit of joy, because if you ever read the news or you look at any website about the environment, you know that it's not free. And so one of the things that California Interfaith Power Light is trying to do is go, we know it's not great. And so we've been focusing on, there's all these interconnecting pieces to the environment. But there's this one about clean energy, right? So there's some people that study native grasslands, and some people that study soil, and some people that study the climate cycles, and some people that study how do we justly transition from oil to more sane ways of creating electricity. And so California Interfaith Power Light helps launch this kind of interreligious movement across the country, but initially in California, to try to equip churches and houses of worship of all sorts with the infrastructure, the clean energy infrastructure that we might need if things go a little haywire. Well, so you got 20 years, things are going haywire. When I first moved to the Bay Area, the sky was red for like a whole day, for 24 hours, because of the wildfires, because of the smoke. My friend came to visit me from Florida, and I was so excited to show San Francisco off, and he had to wear a mask, and he couldn't even go outside all the time. And so it's not a thing that's happening out there, it's happening now. And so one thing that the larger environmental movement has learned, now the larger, I say, the big wave dominant version, because there's always like the small marginalized people. So those who've experienced the brunt of climate change, these frontline communities, the communities that have been redlined, or the communities like in our offices in West Oakland, it's a freight town. So there's just hundreds and hundreds of these massive trucks that come through. There's also a 94% asthma rate. And so what Interfaith Power Light thankfully is doing now, and I'm new to the team since October, but is that they're listening to the voices of the front lines. And now saying, wait, we can't just equip our nice Episcopal wealthy churches in the heart of the city. We need to go to the outsides, the outskirts, to the communities that have been pushed aside. And we need to equip them with the resources that they might need for when the power goes out. And the neighbors need to charge their medical devices, or they need the refrigerator to be on so that they can put their medicine in the fridge. Now we're learning. I just got off the phone with Pastor Current, who leads a Black Indigenous people called BIPOC community in South San Francisco. He said, Gregory, the power went out the other day, And we've got this resilience hub. I get into my car, and I go to turn the garage door open, and it won't open because the power's down. And so there's little things we're learning as we're creating these resilience hubs. The little intricate pieces that you really need to know whether to make this stuff work. So that's what we're up to, and that's why Matt and I are trying to work on creating and transitioning this facility in its own way to be a resilience hub of some sort, possibly, to where when disaster does strike this neighborhood, that the immediate neighbors could find a safe haven, rather than going like the DMV for help or something. You could go to a place that's comfortable, that has a warm cup of coffee, a fridge that's on, and some place I can charge my phone to phone my influence. It's not revolution, but it's what we need. It's home, it's happy. Maybe it is revolution. So I'm going to close by saying, we also always want solutions. So I can tell you all about resilience hubs all I want, but lots of times when I speak, people go, but what's the solution to climate change? And I think we need to begin to stop thinking for the big solution, and to begin to think that there's just millions of small experiments, tons of different things that help humans, Homo sapiens, have been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years, and it's really only these last couple that we've destroyed the Earth. So one, we can look back to what we've done historically, how we related to the land, how cultures all around the world have related to the land in a healthier way. But then we can also look forward by trying to just practice this. What does it look like to do it? Rather than thinking about who to vote for, let's just figure out how to do that. But let's figure out how to do it here, now, every day of the week. How to live more resilient. And instead of thinking of our small individual practices as being that which will change the world, being, yes, take short showers, yes, eat less meat, yes, don't throw tissue boxes at people. Do all of those small things, you know, but also think bigger. But think of those small things as spiritual practices. When you take a shorter shower, it's not going to stop industrial civilization from wiping out aquifers, but it is a helpful reminder that you are treading lightly on this earth, that you care, that you are part of a community and a religious movement, a large religious movement that says we care. And so to close, the goosebumps are already starting. The solution is this: it doesn't matter if you win, fight for what you love. Fight for the songbirds and the rivers and the dolphins and your children and your great-great-grandchildren. And who cares if you win, because you went out fighting. Fight on. Sunday's coming.